Is your heart whispering to you? Is it telling you that you're destined for more in your creative life than what you're doing now?
Maybe you're too scared to do it.
Maybe you're doing it, but it doesn't feel quite right.
Today on Honestly, Dear Listener, we're talking about what happens when your artistry lives in the shadows, so close to who you want to be, but not exactly there.
We're two childhood best friends talking about creative mindset.
I'm Emily Hatch.
And I'm Carrie Schaefer, and this is Honestly, Dear Listener.
Honestly, dear listener.
Woo! Happy Friday, friends.
Hello to you.
I am really excited to get into our discussion today. Tell me what's been happening for you.
Well, so if you've been listening, you know the last couple weeks we started the Artist's Way as a group, and so Carrie and I are leading a small group of folks through Julia Cameron's book, The Artist's Way, and it's the first time I've attempted it, so it's exciting for me. And there's a thing that we do called the Artist's Date, where you take yourself on a date somehow, and that can actually just be like in your home, but you section off time for yourself to explore something that makes you feel artisty, I guess. That's a word. And so
It is
my
now.
my artist date, I had my first one because I didn't do it last week. Um already hitting the ground running. So this this week I took myself to a story night.
Ooh.
So I didn't know this existed, and because I've lived most of my life in Colorado in sometimes smaller areas, there's this thing called the Moth. You can look it up on
Mm.
Instagram, where people tell 5-minute stories, and um, they have like competitions where you can just go tell a 5-minute story. It's like an open mic, but so this particular event, there were 300 people there. A lot of people just standing. There weren't like space enough for wasn't space enough for everyone to sit. And I didn't know how it worked. I noticed that when people were called up, they seemed surprised. The lady next to me got called up. So you can, before you go, you buy your ticket. It's not very expensive, and you can apply to be one of the people that tells the story. And then they just call you up. So they have like a producer. I'm assuming you say what your story is, the basics of what your story is, and there's a theme for the evening. And then they randomly call people up. So the producer, I think, probably chooses from that group and then chooses the people, and they don't know. Um, so
Cool.
yeah, so I was watching and I was like, oh my God. So 10 people got called up, and there were 3 groups of judges, and they judge arbitrarily in a way. If you go over your time, that can be a ding, or if you aren't on topic, that can be a ding. But otherwise, like, they rate the stories, and then whoever wins gets to go to the Grand Slam, which is like all the winners. Um, and then I'm going to go next week to one that's a fully planned story night at the Met. I'm really stoked.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. How
s-
cool.
it was so awesome. So this one was it was called Change of Plans, and it was just stories about a time in your life when plans changed. And it was so cool. All different kinds of stories, all different kinds of people, different, like, you could tell planning stages of people's stories.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really neat. And I think it's something scary that I want to do. So, because I've been thinking about with what I'm doing with writing the show, I don't know that I want to do comedy. I don't really know that I want to like be singing. Where's a space that I could just go tell a story?
Yes.
And that's that. So I think I'm going to be like trying, there are a couple open mics that are like this, but a smaller version to kind of practice. And then I think I'm going to put my name in the hat, cuz get this. 300 people there, right?
Uh-huh.
Guess how many people put their names in the hat?
Not very many.
20.
I knew it. I knew it. Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
And they call 10.
So you have like what is that, a 50-50 chance
Mhm.
of being called?
Mhm.
Those are pretty good odds,
That's
Emily.
crazy.
Yep. I love
So,
that.
yeah, I'm like, "Oh my god." And then they people just sit and listen, and they're silent, and they just sit and listen to your story. That's like dreams.
Yep. Oh, Emily, you have to do it.
It seems very scary, but I'm stoked, and I have a lot of stories.
Yeah.
So, I mean, change of plans. I could have been like, the time I got pregnant when I thought I was gonna start doing musical theater. So yeah, I'm excited. That's my thing.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love that. Oh gosh, that
Now
makes me
you have to come here and do it. Oh my god.
I know that would be so fun. Oh my gosh. Oh, talk yeah, hashtag dreams. To tell a
Do it.
story? Yeah. I mean, I feel like that for me, that's where it's at because like I love making people laugh, but also I feel like when you are a comedian, there's so much pressure to be funny. Whereas a
Mhm.
storyteller, like there's pressure there because, you want it to be good and you want to perform it well, but like it could be whatever it's going to be. It could be funny, it could be sad, it could be somewhere in the middle. It could be anything
Mhm.
as long as you've got a compelling story. And to me, that's like that sweet, that's a sweet spot right there. Okay,
Yeah.
so my thing this week was that I also last week was going to take myself on an artist date, and I was really excited because I was going to see Alien Romulus, the new Alien movie. My plans got thwarted and I wasn't able to see it. So I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I have not seen the first 6 Alien movies. I'm going to watch them in order. And then I'm going to, especially the first one, because I think I like the first one the best out of all of them. I want to go through and figure out its 3-act structure and all the beats. Like it's right here. I read
Ooh.
this book. Save the Cat writes a novel based on the books by Blake Snyder. This one's by Jessica Brody. It's super good. And she talks about the different beats within a 3-act structure. So I was like, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to figure out this 3-act structure. So after I did that, I was like, I don't know if this is right. I don't know like what I'm doing necessarily. This is just my opinion. So I hopped on Chat GPT and was like, "Dear Chat GPT, um, would you please, using the beats in this book and the 3-act structure idea, will you plan out the whole Aliens 1 movie and tell me where you think the beats are?" And it did it, and they were different than mine, and I was like, "Wait, wait, 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 wait. Could mine work though?" And it was like, "Absolutely, and here's how it would work." Like, and what I discovered was this. Yes, put the whole AI is scary thing aside for just a second because I agree. I do think it has the implications. I don't even think we have even scratched the surface of AI.
Mhm.
But put that aside for a second. I realized that AI has access to so much information that if you are a self-taught individual with a desire to learn and grow, ChatGPT could literally give you a college education. It kind of blew my mind. I was like, wait, I have access to an intelligent discourse about anything that has to do with my field of study? Like, it kind of blew my brain a little bit, and I was like, the implications of this are massive. Now I get that it's scary. I get that, and that's still like, does it I could sit there and have hours of conversation with this thing. Is it going to replace the connection of a human being? I don't see that happening, or at least hashtag not yet. I don't know. But, like, it was some of the most delightful, intelligent conversation I've had in a long time.
Hmm.
I know. It was crazy, and I would challenge it on certain things, and then it would be like, "But did you think about this?" And then I'd be like, "Well, yeah, if you're analyzing this from this theme, but if you're analyzing it from this thesis statement, then blah, blah, blah." Like, it was blowing my mind.
Wow.
Yeah. So basically, I'm here to say that ChatGPT is my new best friend, and not really, but like my mind is blown. My mind is
Wow,
blown.
that's crazy.
And whereas I don't like, I think we need to be really careful as artists. Like, I'm not going to sit down and be like, "Dear ChatGPT, write my whole novel for me." Like,
Mm,
that's not the point. That is, I mean, could I do that? Yes. Am I going to do that? No, because I have ethical issues with that. But like, can I use this thing as a tool in my creativity? Oh my gosh.
mhm. Yeah. I think the possibilities are endless. I think that's why it's scary. Uh,
Yes.
but did you know, I forget where I saw this, but I was doing a dive into, into AI for, can you make cartoons that are AI generated that are blah, 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 which is, sad and scary in itself, but I was
Mhm.
looking and I went on and I, got in the upside down a little bit and found out that you can, train AI to be your friend. So, when you were saying that,
Whoa.
I was like, there were I ran into something that was like, you can, have a friend that has that is a human looking person on the internet that responds to you like your friend.
Yeah. Have you ever seen Her? I think is what
Yes.
it's called. The guy, I think it's Joaquin Phoenix. He ends up falling in love with this like Siri like character.
The voice of Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah. And by the end
Yes.
I was like, oh gosh.
Yeah.
Like we're not too far away from that. What happens when your heart gets involved? What happens when something becomes a little too human? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean,
It's
you can okay, so there was I forget what it was on. Was it on CapCut? I don't remember. But you could have fully an AI actor sell your product, write your script,
oh
say
my
in a
gosh.
very lovely voice, with human actions in a
Mhm.
video, advertise your product.
Yeah.
And it looks and sounds like a real person.
That
And you can
is a
hire him to
really
be your
great
friend.
that is a really great segue into our main topic of discussion. We should define some terms first. What is a shadow artist
So in the book also,
in the artist's way?
yes. And one of the things she talks about in the first chapter is the concept of shadow artists. And basically, what that is someone who is living adjacent to an
Mm,
artist's life.
that's a
Um,
really good way to put that.
I believe that the Big Leap talks about this concept, maybe, or is it Big Magic? Big something talks about that you're living a life that's adjacent to what you would actually want to be doing. I'm pretty sure it's The Big Leap, which is a great book I've listened to like 3 or 4 times. Um, and that you don't almost value perhaps your own offerings at what the biggest thing living in your zone of genius, like what you could be doing as an artist in your life, you become something that feels safer or that the
Mm,
people around you might think is safer, that keeps you small and keeps you close to what you want to do but not actually cracking into the fullness of your artistry. And so, an example of that might be um, I want to be a musician, but I don't believe that I have the time or money or ability to be able to fully commit myself to that. So instead, I'm going to work a job that is a normal job to pay my bills. And then I'm going to be in a relationship with someone who's doing something like what I want to do and support them fully.
mm,
That's an example of someone maybe that is a shadow artist. Um, so they are still living the life of an artist and they get the feeling of contributing to that life but not living it themselves. Another example, which is pretty pokey, I think, for a lot of people. I'm a voice teacher. And I don't pursue in any way my own music, which is why I started any of this in the first place. I just live vicariously through the students that I teach, um, and don't connect to my teaching as artistry, just as a job. And I can make sense of that in my mind because I'm still doing it, but I'm not actually doing it. So that's not
Mm.
to say, like, this is the problem that I come up with in my brain. Does that mean everyone who helps artists is a shadow artist? I have opinions. I don't think so. But,
Yeah.
like, if you help artists for a job, or you're married to an artist, or you're a lot of your life is contributing fully to an artist, does that make you a shadow artist? Like, what do you think about that? Have you thought about this at all with the book?
Yeah. So I think that it could go either way or somewhere in the middle. Um, as I'm trying not to be so all or nothing in my thinking. So I think it's all in what you really want. If what you really want is if your thing that you want to do and your dream and your goal is to be a voice teacher, and to you that is your artistry, and that's kind of like the end, like that is what you want to do is education, specifically in voice, then I don't think that makes you a shadow artist. However, if you're too afraid to do something else, i.e., perform or write your own songs and perform them or whatever it is, but you are too afraid to do that, so you settle for maybe the next best thing, which
Mm.
is being a voice teacher, maybe, then yeah, I do think that's getting into shadow artist territory. Anything that you're doing, if fear is involved, I think maybe there's a potential for there to be shadow artistry going on.
I agree. Yeah, and I think if you tell yourself, like, I this is good enough, I don't
Mhm.
need to do this, or there's a voice maybe from your past that's like, that's not realistic, like we've
Mhm.
talked about kind of last week, that might have said, like, well, you want to be a singer, but you have to do something logical, so you became a voice teacher, and
Mhm.
then you long for the singing life you wanted when someone told you you couldn't have it, and that voice still comes up and says, "Can I?" And then the other voice comes and says, "No." I
Mhm.
think that's like a flag to the longing, I think, is like a
Mhm.
key to listen to. Like, if you still have a longing for more than this thing that is adjacent, then that's a good clue that maybe you're being a shadow artist.
Mhm.
And I think what that really means is you're not fully stepping into everything that you want to be in your life.
Mhm.
And so, like, is it bad to help people? No. Is it bad to support an artist? No. Is it bad to be a voice teacher? No. Like, but you're denying maybe the
Mhm.
core of who you are.
Right.
And that's a bummer.
I think that
um,
there's a really good because I think a lot of people that are engaging in shadow, being a shadow artist, there's a financial component there because it's like, well, if I'm a novelist, I mean, th- that's putting a lot of pressure for me to financially drop everything I'm doing and hope and pray that my career as a novelist takes off and financially supports me. So I do, I write magazine articles, or I am an editor instead. Like I don't I don't think that just I agree with Elizabeth Gilbert in when she says that in Big Magic, the book, where she says don't put that much weight on your art to have
Mhm.
to financially support you, because sometimes that's too much pressure, and that's, not realistic. It makes sense to me. If I don't think it's bad to be like, yeah, I'm an editor by day and a novelist by night.
I'm not fully giving up on what I want to be doing, but I'm not giving it the pressure of having to support me either. Cause like
Thank you.
that's something that is a thing in my mind that spins around like, well, does that mean you're a shadow artist if you don't make your living with your art? No,
Mm,
that's not what that means. I
right.
think it means like paying attention to if we're denying the soul of who we are, which is our art. I think we all are creative people, and there's something within us that's like, hey, I need to do this. And if we're like, shut up, I think that
Mhm.
often will turn into us, okay, if I can't do that, then I'll find a way to sort of make money doing a version of that.
Mhm.
But like, in order to be an artist, I think what you're saying too, it doesn't mean that you have to be a novelist that is supporting themselves with their books and or like a painter who's, you know, making thousands of dollars selling their art. It's just if you want to be a painter and that's the heart of what you want, you probably shouldn't just get a job at an art store and stop painting.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. Like,
Mhm.
yeah. As It's interesting because when I have done shadow artistry work in the past, like I've said, I've written magazine articles, or I've written commercial ideas or script ideas, whatever it is. You'd think that with it being in the realm of something that I like, which is writing, that I would like it, but just not as much as I would like actually working on my own projects. It
Mhm.
is like pulling teeth to get myself to do it. Once I do it, I like that I have done it, written those articles or those scripts or whatever, but like it's in the middle of doing it, it's almost painful. It's almost painful than doing something that I'm completely uninterested in, like
I
gardening or
agree.
something. You know, what
Yes.
it's it what why do you think that is? It's so weird.
I think your brain and body know that
Hmm.
you're just trying to make it okay, and they're like, "Excuse me, this is not it."
Right.
And if you were just doing something like working at a for me, like working at a law firm, I'm not expecting to make working at a law firm, this was, years ago, my thing. So I wasn't,
Right.
like, disappointing myself. Whereas when I take a gig because it's money and no one gives a shit about it, it
Mm.
feels so bad because it's like,
Mhm.
I'm supposed to make this take the place of what I actually wanna do, and it's
Mhm.
like, ugh. I mean, we talked quite a few episodes ago with Charlotte about, like, being a bunch of different things, but with Charlotte Campbell, one of the episodes, we were talking about why, like, if someone commissions you, she does a lot of amazing things, and one of them is that people were commissioning her to make clothes, and she's like, "Ugh, I don't like doing that because it's someone else's art."
Mhm.
Whereas, like, if she's just serving tables or, like, maybe she's costuming, but it's her art when she's doing it, that's a different story. Like, I don't wanna make someone else's vision because I think she didn't say this, but, like, it reminds me too much of what I actually want.
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
really hard and, like, almost painful
Uh-huh.
to do it. Recently, I've talked about how I've, like, worked for event bands and stuff. I have times where it's very hard for me, and I think a lot of people who do event band work, sometimes it is hard and it feels like a lot of work, and people are like, "Well, you should feel grateful because 'cause you're singing." But it does feel like that. It's like, if it's not just my job and I'm trying to make that replace what I wanna be as an artist, it's not gonna work. Like, if it's just a
Right.
job, then it gets to just be a job, and I don't have to make it into something.
Mhm.
Um, so I think it's important for us to, like, listen to the artist within us and what that person wants to be making
Mhm.
and let her make it.
We're doing a lot of work through the book in learning how to look at what we make and validate it and say, I validate my art as evidenced by the time that I give to it and me listening to what wants to be made.
Mhm.
And I think maybe that's the difference is like it kind of it if we're doing the shadow artist stuff and we're not listening and there is no time and no validation and no attention given to what our heart is longing to make, then that's lopsided. And so you're
Mm.
kind of almost like artistically limping along. Whereas if you're validating those needs and what the universe is sending you as valid and necessary, then that's more balanced and I think, you know, it's gonna be more fulfilling in general as an
Mhm.
artist.
Absolutely. And making that space for it and knowing that it doesn't have to be a business. You can just
Yes.
give it space.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Um, it brought up a lot of stuff for me, and I feel really grateful because I started to be like, "Oh, instead of trying to pour everybody into this bucket, I can be like, no, this one's for me,
Yes.
and this is for work, and this is cuz this is a part of me too that like I've started discovering pieces of me that are my art that I didn't think were, which is kind of exciting. Like, since I was a kid, I've been like making businesses, like selling stuff, selling rocks, like getting the neighborhood to do stuff that fit my vision of what I felt like a good business would be. I've like made logos. And like a big part of my life has been like coordinating people to do a show, even though it was just like in the field, right? Carrie has been one of
Mhm.
my cast members.
Yes.
And I was doing my morning pages, which is also part of that, and realizing I think that's part of my artistry, which I
Mm.
think is weird because you think of that as more like logistics and like businessy stuff that's not art, but my brain will like paint pictures of how to make this thing and I get like really excited and I like to think about all the little parts of it and how they can all work together and who I can get and how, and it's like, "Oh, that's art too."
Absolutely. We
You
have
know?
such a narrow idea of what creativity and art is. Like we think, oh, painting, yes, that painting and drawing and perhaps some theater and some writing, like that's art, right?
Mhm.
But my gosh, leadership, creative leadership, um businesses, entrepreneurship, organizing people, organizing events, organizing in general things to bring things out of chaos and into order. These are all things that I've heard so many times. I'm not creative. I'm not creative. And yet I look at what they're doing for work and I'm like, holy cow, lady, you are literally the engine that keeps this corporation going. Don't tell me you're not creative. There's creativity in there. You're solving if creativity is solving problems, my gosh, you're an artist. And if that is your art, if entrepreneurship or leadership or any of those things is your art, and you're like, oh, I'm just not an artist because I don't paint, like bullshit.
Mhm.
That's your art. Freaking do your art. Do it and love it.
Yep.
So we have got to expand our definition of what we think art is.
I totally agree. And what is creativity? I did an interview like last year with Canvas Rebel, and one of the questions was how would you explain something to someone who isn't creative? And I was like, I don't believe in that. Like,
Yep.
what a hippie. I was just like, I do not believe that there's a human on this earth that isn't creative.
Right.
Like,
100%.
we're all creative,
Yeah.
you know? And but I think taking the idea of what we're talking about today and saying, well, I'm creative in my job, so that's my art. And like, you be careful though of that, because where is your heart, and what is that little voice telling you that you should be doing that you want to do?
Mm.
And if she's talking about making a logo and excited for a business, then great. But if you're like, I guess I'll make this my art so that I'm ignoring that little voice, got to be careful.
Yes,
So
agreed.
listen to yourself. Listen to
An
yourself.
Another way that I have found shadow artistry sneak in for me, this very week, in fact, Emily, is that because where I want to expand and where I feel that little voice is in writing, specifically novel writing. And what I will do is I will say, okay, like every day I want to have a, a word count for the day. So I find that through the artist way, I'm doing the morning pages and the weekly artist date. Those are non-negotiables in this class. And so I will write my word count for my morning pages and be like, I'm done. I'm done writing today. And in
Mm,
that way, I'm misusing morning pages as like, oh, yep, now I'm good. Or writing journal entries. These things are not bad.
mm-mm,
They're not bad, but if I'm honest with myself and I get to the end of my day and all I have to show for my work that day is a journal entry or my morning pages, that's not giving credence and validity to the very cry of my heart. Do they set me in the right direction? Absolutely. But I don't want to stop there.
mm-hmm.
I want to so it kind of does require me to have to say, okay, but we're still going to push. We have more in there. Get it out.
Mm-hmm.
Don't stop halfway through.
Because technically, friends that don't know this book, we're not allowed to share our morning pages. So, like, it's really safe if you count your morning pages, because then most of your writing is going to be something no one's allowed to see. It's not my fault that I can't share this.
Oh, darn it.
Yeah, yep. No, so
Uh-huh.
I get that. And that's like obviously not shamey and like, ooh, I just but I can see how that could be like a, well, I did do it, you know.
My brain figures out little ways to get around doing the hard thing if I feel resistance about it because I'm scared. Oh,
Mhm.
I'm scared of messing up, or I'm scared of success, or I'm scared of whatever it is. Then I'll be like, oh, well, and I will figure out ways to get around it, like making morning pages my writing for the day. I mean, I
I
get so creative to like avoid the thing that I really want to do.
I've done that with morning pages. Like 2 days ago, I love getting up in the morning and writing. I'd done it without it being required of me. But now that it's technically required of me, the other morning I was like tootling about the house, trying to think of anything I could do that wasn't morning pages because I have to do them.
Uh huh.
And I was like, just fucking sit down and write that. And I'm like, but I could also unload the dishwasher. So I'm going to do that. Okay, time for another cup of coffee. I'm going to stand here and look at it. Like, Emily, I've literally 2 or 3 times was like, this is so clear
Yep.
that you're like being rebellious against yourself.
Mm hmm.
And that is because you're like afraid to actually dive into what your brain's doing and set this time aside for yourself too.
Yep.
Like, that's a big thing too. We
Mm
are
hmm.
not taking care of ourselves always, right? Being like, this is time I set aside for myself. I don't need to protect that.
Right.
Um, that's a whole nother podcast, but Like, I don't need to protect this time for myself.
Mhm.
Let me talk myself out of it and do stuff for other people until I absolutely have to do this.
Yep. Oh, yeah, sometimes I'll do evening pages because I've talked myself out of morning pages and afternoon pages, and now it's the evening. And I'll even write in there, evening pages. Yep, I guess morning pages or evening pages. And don't get me wrong, I'm glad that I did it. At least I did it at
Mhm.
all. But it's kind of defeating the purpose of doing it in the evening versus the morning, as the very purpose of them is to like dump out all of your gobbledygook in your brain so that you can have an empty vessel to be filled up with what the universe wants to give you.
Mhm.
So, ugh, why
I have a
is being human so hard, Emily?
It is hard. I have a suggestion question.
Yeah.
I don't know if your brain works the same way as mine, but do you have a separate, like when you write your morning pages, do you have a separate way that you write your novel stuff? Are
You
they the
mean
same way?
like on the same computer or in the same computer program?
Or yeah, or like some things by hand and some things by typewriter and some things by computer, or like, are they the same?
Mhm. Not the same computer program, but the same computer.
Hmm. It helps me to have morning pages be like by hand. And
Mm.
then when I go to work on something, either like switch notebooks if I still
Mhm.
want to write by hand, or like now I'm going to sit down and do this on my computer and it's like a different thing. I
Mhm.
don't know if that would be helpful. That
Yeah, absolutely.
then it feels more like first this, then this, which
This.
is like a new novel thing that I get to do instead of the same shit, you know?
Right. No, that's a
I don't
really
know.
good idea. I'm gonna try that and see if, or even just something as simple as a location change, I
When I'm in
think.
this room, I'm like working on this. And when I'm doing this, I'm just
Mhm.
talking to myself on a paper. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I have separate rooms for things and I've started like getting lazy about it. And so now everything's in one place. And when I have everything kind of in one place that's not the office space that I have,
Mhm.
then it all feels like work. Even like
Mm,
talking on the
mhm.
phone or hanging out all feels like work because I'm all in the same place.
Mhm.
So when I go to my office, I'm like, no, I'm working lady. And when
Yeah.
I go to my table, I'm like, no, I'm relaxed lady.
Right.
Um, so
That
yeah,
I like that.
I need a change of scenery too.
Mhm. I wanna really point out because I think it's really easy for us to feel shamey if we're still in that the shadow artist place.
Hmm.
I think it's really worth pointing out that if you find yourself as a shadow artist, there's nothing wrong with you and you're not bad and you're not
Mm-mm.
broken and you're not any of those things. You're working perfectly well. It's just a matter, I think it could be just a small tweak. It's not like we have to upend our lives. Although some people, maybe it will require more of a dramatic change, but it doesn't necessarily have to. It's just maybe as simple as I need an extra hour for myself today to do the thing that I love. And it doesn't have to be a big shame storm. So, dear listener, please be gentle to yourself. Don't like think you have to go out and blow up your whole life or whatever. Just know that that person inside wants to be fulfilled too. And maybe shifting our focus to be able to hear what that person is saying, maybe that's all it takes.
Hmm. That's so important and so true. And I think a way you can tell if you might be going through it is if you feel like every time you're doing something you thought you wanted to do, you want to like bang your head against the wall about it and it
Mm,
doesn't really feel like this, like if this is it, then that's really sad for me. Like then listen, because there might be a little voice in there whispering, like, I want to try this,
Mm.
and let yourself try it. That
Mhm.
doesn't mean like, oh, I've been a shadow artist now, I got to
Mhm.
throw this all away. Like you said, for me, like, I'm saying that because that's my experience. I've been like, but I'm doing everything I want to do. Why do I feel like I'm not doing anything I want to do?
Mhm.
And I'm realizing like, oh, it's because I have really put on that person, like, now you've got to carry my financial stability and
Mhm.
not actually listen to what I care about doing. Um, so for me, my little shift right now is like, I'm letting the job, the shadow artist thing, be my job. And then I'm listening to what I'd like to do, which is tell more stories.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to have another notebook or another space where I can just write the story stuff that I want to write. And I'm going to go find ways to listen to stories. And maybe if you're not in New York and you don't have access to that, there's a lot of stuff online, that you can find. Maybe your community isn't in real life, but you can always hire AI to be your friend. I'm just kidding. No, but you can always
Ooh,
go on. I was totally joking. You can always find an online community. Where your community, you can find that you're not hopeless in your art and you don't have to make it make your money.
that's right.
Listen to that little voice. And if that little person is saying, I want to try this, try it.
Yeah. And we would love to hear about it, dear listener. Please reach out to us on social media. You can find us on our website, honestlydearlistener.com. Let us know, reach out. We would love to know. And also, I would love to know your thoughts on AI. I know that's super topicy right now.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, reach out and let us know what are your thoughts?
It's a big topic.
It is. It
Well,
is.
thanks for being here, dear listeners, and we'll talk to you next week.
Honestly, dear listener.